was thinking about this morning. I'm reading again the Dante's Divine Comedy, and I'm in purgatory now. Went from Inferno to purgatory, then next is Paradiso. And I was thinking about purgatory. C.S. Lewis believed in purgatory. Hear me cautiously. So do I. But our purgatory is here and now. It's our working out our own salvation with fear and trembling. It's getting rid of those things that hold us back, even our own talents, even our natural innate abilities. We have to lay them aside. So, the three. Do you love me? Yeah, you know I love you. Do you love me? Yeah, Lord, love you. You know, one, teach my sheep, shepherd my flock, care for my people. And the only way you can do that is with my love. And what did Christ do? He came from the agape of heaven to the phileo of life. You are my friends if you do what I command you to do.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome, my brother.
Okay, number 5. Does this apply to us? If I would that he remain till I come, what is that to you? You follow me. Now, Christ's prediction of Peter's death leads to a natural question. John, who refers to himself indirectly, is right nearby. And Peter naturally wonders what's going to happen to him. Jesus' response is not harsh, but it's blunt. What happens to John is irrelevant to Peter's faith. Peter simply needs to follow Christ, regardless of God's will for other people. God appoints a course of life for each one of us. And when Jesus says, or when Peter says, Lord, what shall this man do? And Jesus says, what is that to you? No words could mark more emphatically the difference which was going to exist between the paths of these two men who had followed Christ so closely together and done so many things together as part of Jesus' inner circle. But John couldn't live the light of Peter, and Peter couldn't fulfill the destiny of John. In different and lonely ways, they were each to travel till the end should come. In the life of Peter was going to be action crowned by suffering. In the life of John, a more patient waiting for the manifestation of Christ. There, in the difference between laboring and watching, lay the difference in their respective courses. To each class of men, to each infinitely varied soul, the path of life is divinely adapted. In believing in a divinely ordered course, the question comes, by what rule is that course fulfilled? By what means are we to detect our path? But the answer comes in Christ's own words. You follow me. That simple command guides us all. To follow Christ is, like him, to obey whenever God's will is clear, or to be patient when it's dark. And it's a rule that applies to all of our circumstances, and one that can be obeyed in defiance of all the results. Following Christ in his perfect, unmurmuring obedience. And yet as you follow, a fuller light will come to you. We find here in Christ's words to Peter the strength which will help us to fulfill our course. It's the will of Christ which gives us power, for it implies knowledge and sympathy with us. And the revelation of the risen Christ as the Lord of life and death is in this majestic, if I will. In his charge to Peter, Christ had asserted his right to absolutely control his servant's conduct and fix his place in the world, and his power at least to foresee and forecast his destiny and his end. But in these words he goes a step further. If I will that he remain. To communicate life and to sustain life is a divine prerogative. To act by the bare utterance of his will upon the physical nature is a divine prerogative. And Jesus Christ here claims that his will goes out with a sovereign power amongst the perplexities of human history and into the depths of that mystery of life, in that he, the Son of Man, quickens whom he wills and has the power to kill and to make alive. The principle applies more broadly to us as Christians today. It's good to care about the fate of other people, but we should seek to meet their needs. But whether others win or lose, and even whether they live or die, doesn't change our obligation to focus on a personal obedience. Sufferings, pains, and death will appear formidably even to the experienced Christian. But in hope to glorify God, to leave a sinful world and to be present with the Lord, he becomes ready to obey the Redeemer's call and to follow him through death to glory. And it's the will of Christ that his disciples should mind their own duty and not be curious about future events either as to themselves or others. Many things we are apt to be anxious about, which is really nothing to us. Other people's affairs are nothing to us to intermingle in. We must quietly work and mind our own business. Many curious questions are put about the counsel of God and the state of the unseen world, as to which we may say, what is this to us? But if we attend to the duty of following Christ, we shall find neither heart nor time to meddle with that doesn't belong to us. I'm thinking of a personal situation. For me, a lot of times in my life, my work life, I used to think somebody would get hired, and I would think, gosh, how's that affect me? What's this person going to do? Is he going to take my job, or is he going to do something that I can't worry about that stuff? Got to leave it up to God. All I can do is take care of what I can be responsible for. I can't worry about what my brother / friend Tony is going to do or anything else. I can just worry about me. And I think that's something that we all stumble with sometimes, is worrying about everybody else and what they're going to do. So let's leave it to God and just do what we can do.
Yeah, so a modern translation being, Peter, mind your own business.
Yeah, that.
And that line is so powerful to me. What is that to you? You follow me. Boy, if we could get that in the church, wow. There'd be no division, there'd be no factions taking off, I can't believe he said that. What is that to you? You follow me. Good stuff. Thank you for that. Number 6, and this isn't a question in John's gospel. I think it's kind of maybe our final question. Why teach with questions? If you look at all the blanks in our outlines for quite a while now, every one of them are questions. So you're filling in the blanks to ask a question. Why teach with questions? Basically, what reveals the content of our character more than questions? What would you rather be being told or being asked? Which one makes you think? Being asked. And too many of us, what we want, especially in church, especially with the Lord, give me a law. Just tell me, don't do this, do that. And Christ says, no. What do you want to do? Well, Lord, I want to fornicate. Now think about that. You know the law isn't to hinder you, but it's to protect you. And again, when we look at the love of God, C.S. Lewis, and again, I refer to him often, one of the only recordings we have of his voice is a teaching on the 4 loves. The agape love, the filial love, the storge love. Storge is family love, sibling love, family love, a son for a mother, etc. And then the last one is eros, and that's that sexual attraction. That's the love between a husband and a wife. It's the reason you got married, that passion love, and it's a good thing. as well. And so when Jesus asked this question 3 times to Peter, do you love me? He wasn't asking Peter so Jesus would know the answer. No. Well, do you love me? Jesus knew. He wanted Peter to know. And so when we look at the questions that are asked in the Bible, especially the questions that Jesus asked, 307 questions. He didn't ask them so that he would know. He asked them so that we would know the answer. And when you have Christ in you, and if you're a believer, you do, the answer will bear witness with your spirit, because your spirit is connected to the Spirit of Christ. And so let's end our look into the questions Jesus asked in John's Gospel. Let's go back to the first one. What do you want? Remember when Philip was following and he turned, what do you want? There's the whole sentence is, what do you want me to do for you? But the connotation is, what do you want? And the question to you and I is the same. What do you want? And let me close with something that actually happened this past Monday. A friend of ours, and is a sunriser, that's what we call people with the sunrise, Wiley Lane. He was a black guy, just a gentle giant of a man. And we would do every year, we did 4 major productions, and one was called Celebrate Christmas. And Wiley always portrayed one of the wise men. Not a word, no word spoken, but I could see him in my mind's eye walking down the aisle carrying the myrrh. The last of the 3 wise men. Well, Wiley would write devotions and send them to different friends. And Monday, this is part of the devotion that he wrote this past Monday. You call me Lord. I hear you. I see you. I see your heart stirring. You want more of me. Or at least you think you do. But if you're honest, what you want isn't me. It's rescue. It's a way out. It's wisdom. It's direction. It's provision. It's a bandage on a wound. You really don't want me. You want what I can do for you. And this is that was the introduction of talking to God. An hour later, Wiley died. Went on to be with the Lord. And left to me as a most powerful final word, not even knowing it was his final word, but the Spirit of God speaking to him more clearly than I could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever recall hearing Wiley say anything.
Mm-hmm. I didn't either. All those years.
Just, he had this, you greeted him every time you saw him because he was greetable. But that question, when I read this Monday, because we're always at least a week or 2 ahead with our lessons, so we talk about them, make sure we're on the same page. When I read that Monday, and I had already written, matter of fact, I had just written the 6th question, why teach with questions, and closing the class, hey, the first question is, what do you want? Simon, son of Jonah, you love me more than these. And then back to the last question. What is that to you? You follow me. Back to the first question. What do you want? What do we want? And I would hope that we can get to the point, guys, I'm not there yet, I'm striving. I want Jesus, period. I want to know him, period. I want to get to the point where I don't just want what he can do for me. I want him, period. And when we get to heaven, that's going to be our final desire. Oh, that I might see him. And when we see him, be like him, for we'll see him as he is. These lessons I was telling Sherry last night, our class, that gathering last night reminded me almost 35 years ago when we planted the church in San Diego. I said that same joy that we had then, without the problems, without the headache of getting payroll and getting buildings and where we're going to meet, and etc. This latter time being with you guys, it was wonderful. Without the problems, all except Chuck.
You know, and we did talk about this last night, and it's almost like, you know, everyone needs to be surrounded by people. There are people you work with. Then you have family. And so many people leave out spiritual friends. And it's probably the most necessary people in our life. People who you know are like-minded in Christ. People who you can share, no matter what you're going through. You're not going to be judged. We've all been through, everyone here has a story. Everyone here has tragedy in their life, and we all have great joy. But to be able to share that and know that you're going to be loved for it and pray, people are going to pray for you. And I thought last night, how rich. That was just rich that we know we have that. And it's grown because of this class. And God has blessed us. And it's not a small thing. It's a very powerful, rich segment of people in our life. And we're so thankful for it. Amen.
We were talking about that earlier this morning, and I was telling Pastor Tony how important it is for me to have, you know, the men's group around us, the guys that I've gotten to know more intimately as we've shared so many things. And it's been such a strength to me that at one time in my life I didn't have, and it caused me to make some bad choices because of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's been such a blessing. I have one last question. What are we going to do next week?
Next week?
There you go.
You ready?
Act on it. Looking at me.
I didn't set up
Take
that.
away your thunder. This is an arrow swing. Theo will come later. Let me put the last question when Jesus asked Peter, do you phileo me? Do you love me as your friend? And I was thinking in John 17, I no longer call you servants. I call you friends. And even this is, for there is a friend who sticks what closer than a brother. And when we love each other with that filial kind of love, it's really, really out there. So let's love each other that way. Next week, we're going to start questions of the Apostle Paul. With the 16 questions he asked in the book of Acts, 82 questions in Romans, 107 in 1 Corinthians, 20 in 2 Corinthians, 8 in Galatians, the rest of the epistles. Paul asked 260 questions. So we're going to go through Acts the next 16 weeks. Well, it's actually some of the questions he asked weren't his questions. He was quoting Jesus. So we'll skip those. So we'll be looking at the questions the apostle asked starting next week.
Doesn't it say to bring your burdens to a friend, not to your brother? In Proverbs?
Say again?
Doesn't it say to bring your burdens and stuff to a friend and not to your brother?
Well, there's a friend that sits closer than a brother. One verse, and it's translated two different ways in two different texts. For a man to have friends, he must show himself friendly. Other translations of that exact same verse says, a man of too many friends will come to ruin.
Yes.
But I have two brothers. My brother Joe's died. My relationship to them is more precious than being my friends than my brothers. Anyway, that's all. We're done. Let's go to church. Worship the Lord.